Welcome to HIMSTalk.ph, the official talk show of HIMAP, the Healthcare Information Management Association of the Philippines. HIMAP is an industry association composed of companies delivering healthcare information management services to their global clients. I am your host, Vincent Tremo, and I am joined by my co-host, JL Botor.
Thank you, Vince. HIMS is short for Healthcare Information Management Services, and in the show, we will be featuring companies who have become part of this growing industry in the Philippines as they provide services to the global market.
We will introduce case studies, meaning actual experiences of HIMAP member companies, focusing on how their solutions and services have helped the global healthcare ecosystem by simply serving the needs of their clients. This is HIMSTalk.ph. This talk is all about HIMS.
We've got an exciting show for you today. Our topic is Healthcare for the Seafarers Amidst the COVID-19 Pandemic, the DQTSI Story. Allow me to introduce our speaker. Gail is the country director of Dynaquest Technology Services Incorporated, an award-winning blockchain solutions for emerging and frontier markets. A BPO expert for 19 years, she started as a call center agent and got promoted to significant roles in the organization, from operations manager, vendor manager, human resource manager, and senior manager client services. Gail currently serves as board member and recently got elected as corporate secretary of the Healthcare Information Management Association of the Philippines, HIMAP. Her excellence in engaging and empowering people has become known in the industry, making her a sought-after speaker in different women forums and summits. Gail is an epitome of a leader who is brave, strong, motivational, and reputable. Ladies and gentlemen, to talk about her first-hand experience on how their company saved seafarers by providing reliable healthcare information management services to their U.S. client, please welcome Miss Gail Macapagal.
Hello, JL. Hello, Vince. Thank you for inviting me today. This is going to be a very interesting show because I will be talking about what we are doing right now amidst the pandemic for our seafarers. My company name is Dynaquest Technology Services Incorporated. We are 7 years in the business and we have been serving, as I previously mentioned, our seafarers. So, what is it exactly do we do? Our company has nurses who serves as our first responders, and we also have doctors who give physician advice and medical case management. So imagine you're a seafarer in a cruise ship or in an oil tanker where there is no doctor. And you get sick, you acquire a symptom, let's say for flu, for stomach ache, or whatever ailment or sickness. For example, right now, what's predominant is COVID 19. So the captain of the ship will get in touch with our first response nurses, and our nurses will be the one to determine if this will be through a physician advice or an onshore evaluation, or worst cases, it could be medical evacuation, for example, really, really urgent cases like heart attack or death at sea. For medical case management, what we do is that, for example, seafarer A has to undergo an operation. So we will be with them pre-operation, during operation, post-operation, until the seafarer is fit to go back to duty. In general, what we do is really to provide healthcare and to provide medical assistance to see, as I mentioned, to seafarers that are sick on cruise ships, on oil tankers, and any vessel that is at sea. I hope I explained that well, JL and Vince.
Wow, Gail, that's very interesting. You have a very good company, and hats off to DQTSI. I think our viewers are wondering how this all started for you and your company. So I'd like to ask whether this service was conceptualized by your company and offered or marketed to potential clients in the US, or is it something that came out of a need? You encountered a need, and then you just answered the need, and it became a service for your company.
Hi Vince, thank you for that question. Actually, it didn't come out as a need for our company, nor did we conceptualize it. What happened is that when our client was in the Philippines, and she had a meeting with my boss, the owner of Dynaquest Technology Services. They um, they put their minds together and came up with the idea of doing business in the Philippines. So you see, sometimes you do not need a product or a concept. You just need to be at the right place at the right time.
That's nice, Gail. So while we are at the idea that they were able to conceptualize a solution, now when you started this business, what basically were the pain points that you encountered?
Okay, so the main pain point really is hiring of nurses and doctors. Because at first, our nurses and our doctors are used to the hospital setting, and they don't see the need or the urgency to be a nurse or a doctor over the phone or over email. So it was very hard to convince them to apply or to get hired. We had experiences when we already had a candidate for contract signing. They or she backed out because they think that it's going to be difficult to give proper care online or via email and through phone calls. But eventually, over the years, when the Philippines have already established that we can also give care to our seafarers through phone or email or chat, then that is the time that it was very easy to be able to hire nurses and doctors. But initially, it was such a painful experience, and it was a pain point because we couldn't hire nurses and doctors to apply.
Yeah, let me just try to put things into perspective because there are several players involved in this, shall I call, ecosystem of the service. We have the seafarers who are at sea. We have the shipping companies employing them. We have your client, which is a company offering remote healthcare services. And there's this company, DQTSI, who is a partner of that company in the US, offering the back end or back office support. Uh, did I understand it correctly?
That's correct. Perfectly put, Vince.
Okay, so based on that service, we can see that your doctors and nurses really play an integral part or a very critical role in terms of taking care of this seafarers. So how does this happen? How does the service happen? Can you walk us through the process as to how this service is rendered from the time a seafarer gets sick until the time he recovers?
Thank you, Vince, for that question. So, if a seafarer is sick, he informs his captain of his symptoms. And then the captain will email us and tell us that seafarer A is experiencing symptoms A, B, C, D. My first responder, who is a registered nurse, will then decide if A, it is for physician advice, which my doctors can give immediately, or B, if it is for shoreside evaluation, meaning that they have to go to a hospital to be able to render the service. C, if it could be for medical evacuation for very urgent cases, or D, if it could be for medical case management, if it will become an operation, or if you are going to have an operation or a series of medical exams or evaluations. So the easiest and the most effective thing to do is for our physician advisors to give the advice. So if the symptom is flu-like symptoms with rashes, it could be several things. It could be dengue, it could also be COVID. So the next question is that what is in your medical inventory box? So that whatever is in your medical box, our doctors could give them the prescription. Let's say you can give them aspirin or paracetamol or whatever they need. And if you also need an oxygen tank to be able to be relieved of your symptoms, then it is good that our doctors would know what is in their list, and then that's what we give for advice. So that's the physician advice. We also give recommendations. For example, rest for 3 days. Let us know if symptoms persist. Another example is the short side evaluation. If you really need to go to a port of sea and go to a doctor there, let's say in Florida, so what we do is we call the doctor, we call transport services, we set the appointment with them. So technically, it's also short of being a medical concierge service because even the transportation, even the setting up of appointment, we also do. And then the third one for the medical evacuation, that is if someone um, had a heart attack or near death experience, or someone lost a foot or an arm. So that is an immediate need for them to be evacuated through a helicopter. So that's the kind of process that we go through to be able to decide on what service to give to the seafarer.
Okay, so Gail, I'm interested on the activities happening in the Philippine side. So now Vince was able to ask you the question about what's happening in the ships. Now, what is the typical day in your office for this service? Can you walk us through the process?
Okay, so a typical day is that we get an email or a phone call from a captain. My nurse then, as I mentioned, proceeds to um, thinking or determining what to do next as a medical case, physical advice, short side evaluation, medical evacuation. So, but normally, on a normal circumstance, it goes through a physician advice. So they're side by side. And so my nurse will say, Doc, I have a physician, doctor, I have a case for you. We need a medical advice. And so then they send it through email. The reason why this is documented through email is because number one, we don't want to have language barrier between captains who are of other nationalities. And number two, so that it is clearly stated or so that it is documented properly via email. So in case of any issue or in case of any misunderstanding or miscommunication. So they refer it to a doctor. When there is no physician advice needed, the doctors are still doing medical case management for other cases, for other previous cases that can drag on for months or even years. Because as I illustrated earlier, medical case management would start through checkups and then pre-operation, during operation, post-operation, until the seafarer is back at sea. So that's a normal day for us in the office.
Mm.
Okay, so I would imagine that in your operations, telecommunications infrastructure as well as the internet infrastructure is key because you're receiving the requests by email or phone calls, right? And you do this 24 by 7. So I'd like to ask about your experience doing it in the Philippines. Have you had any incidents wherein your infrastructure became an issue in rendering this service to your client?
When we were at our office in Taguig, it was no issue at all. We do not face any latency issues or we do not face any internet issues. But when work from home happened, there are certain places in the Philippines that would have internet connections at certain times. It's not always, it's very seldom. But aside from their internet provider, we also have a backup for them, like the prepaid connection. So to minimize the impact, we are very prepared, because in the normal office infrastructure, you have a backup, you have a plan B, you have a plan C. At home also, what we did right now is, aside from their internet service provider, which we provide them for free, we also give them the backup of all the three major players as their backup internet connection.
Following through the question of Vince, that of course you have the emails coming in from the client. So I'm very curious about the doctors and the nurses. Are they engaged the whole time?
I love that question, JL. Okay, so pre-COVID, admittedly, there were a lot of free time. But during the COVID situation and the pandemic that we're facing right now, um, there would be times that the doctors and the nurses are really preoccupied the entire 9 hour shift. Also, the reason why we are in operations for 24/7 is because we do not know when a tragedy at sea will happen. We do not know when a seafarer will get sick. So we are ready 24/7. And as I have earlier reiterated, no, JL and Vince, initially there were a lot of free time, admittedly. But during this pandemic and during the time that our seafarers would really need our attention, um, they are very well preoccupied, I could say.
Gail, I know that your operations or your service is covered by a non-disclosure agreement with your client. But I hope you could share with us some figures perhaps as to the size of business that you have, or the major clients or types of clients, maybe types of clients that you have, so that the viewers would have an idea of the volume of business that you have in this niche market.
Yes, Vince, because of the non-disclosure agreement, I will not say their names, but I will give you a background on what kinds of vessels we are servicing. The first one is a fleet founded in 1892. It is privately held, a U.S. owned and operated logistics, government, marine, and energy solution company headquartered in Jacksonville, Florida. They own a fleet of more than 2,000 vessels. That's one. Another one is a company that provides long haul marine transportation of petroleum products, petrochemicals, and commodity chemicals in the U.S. coastwise trade, operating under the Jones Act. It has a fleet of 6 U.S. flagged vehicles. Another one is a Singapore based container shipping company, which is a subsidiary of a French shipping company. It operates an all container ship fleet, including 153 container vessels. Another one has 1,000 vessels. It is headquartered in London, England. Another one is a leading provider of international seaborne dry bulk transportation services. They transport iron ore, coal, grain, and steel products. Those are just a few. We still have a lot.
Wow, so your coverage is already so wide. Is there still an expansion opportunity for your company?
Well, I would think so. And I think that because of the reputation that our client has built, together with the reputation that our doctors and our nurses have built throughout the years, I believe that there is still room for growth, for improvement, and for more business opportunities for us Filipinos.
Knowing that long list of clients that you have, may I ask, what is the overall impact of your service to the navigation industry, to the seafarers? Do you see appreciation and demand for the service that you are providing?
I think based on impact, the impact is just tremendous. Because imagine if there's no Dynaquest or DQTSI, who will take care of the people at sea? If one is sick, or even if the captain is sick, we are the one that provides their service. So, based on impact, imagine if there's no company like this in the Philippines servicing the seafarers, then we will be in trouble. Another thing is that I believe that the appreciation to our Filipino nurses and doctors in my company does not just extend to the company, but also um, the relatives and the friends of our patients who have recovered because of the services that we provide through our doctors and nurses. They would give us feedback thanking us for the wonderful service that a Filipino nurse and a Filipino doctor has given to them. And that in itself is a source of Filipino pride, not just for us, but really for the entire hymns industry in the Philippines.
I hope we still have more time, but I guess that's all we have for today. Once again, we would like to thank our guest, Ms. Gail Macapagal, Country Managing Director for DQTSI.
Thank you, JL. Thank you, Vince. Thank you to HEMAP for inviting me. And have a great day, everyone.
Today, we got a glimpse on how important healthcare is to our seafarers and how companies from the Philippines can support U.S. operations in relation to this industry. As Gail has perfectly put it, their seafarers' remote medical service has placed the Philippine healthcare talent in the spotlight as they render medical services across the globe, in the land, and now also in the sea. This service has changed, touched, and saved lives, and we have the skilled, caring, and brave souls behind the scene. A company like DQTSI made sure that the remote medical services are provided according to plan despite the pandemic.
Join us again next time for another featured case study. We are your hosts. I am Vincent Remo.
And I am JL Butor.
Thank you for joining us, and we hope you'll join us again in future episodes of HIMSTalk.ph. This talk is all about hymns.
Keep safe, everyone.
Bye.